people who celebrate Novy God. Um, this is, well, it's a Saturn day Jupiter hour, and I will not argue if it's a Jupiter hour, so why not? And I came here to give a mid-season summary for Spirit of Matter um, for the second half of 2022. This is the chart of the season. This is the chart of today. We have the moon in the first degree of Taurus, Lilith in 29th degree Cancer. Oh my God. Pluto with Venus. Venus is entered Pluto conjunction. Not the least, when you wonder, why am I happy about this? Well, I'll tell you later. Jupiter, the first degree of Aries, sextiling Venus and Pluto. Sun trine Uranus, applying to trine Uranus. Saturn doesn't make any aspects. Well, if I have to think about a couple of episodes that from this second season that walk with me today, I would think of two episodes especially. More, but two. One of them was Van Damme, and I was channeling, half channeling. I was beginning to dance a little bit around the room, and then kick, dance, kick, and then Van Damme. And then I opened the camera and I decided to record. So Van Damme was familiar to me from, being a teenager. And of course, I made certain predictions. Beautiful example of Mars in Cancer and how you can do good with Mars in Cancer. Interesting example of Neptune in the second house. And definitely an episode that I was joyous to do. I would have probably called him in on the show, but I'm just too shy and too afraid of human interactions. Anyway, the second one, and you'd be surprised because there were a couple more, but the second one, the most obvious one, was of course De Vries, Peter De Vries. And what's interesting, I think I told the story, I don't know how much it's understood, but when I was in Netherlands, in between houses, I was channeling. And I was just experimenting with channeling all along, so I got like, I think I saw something watching the news, trying to recall the language, and I saw something about De Vries, and I tried, about his shooting. And I didn't know who he is. I knew he was a criminal reporter who investigated into crimes that are not reported, but I didn't understand exactly all in all. And then I tried to channel him, and that worked. I did not expect to be accompanied by the energy in as much as I was. And so it became very personal to me because this was my fatherland, and that was my link into relating to the language. I didn't have a lot of time online, I did not have, a secure connection to the internet back then. And of course, the story about me being a night in the street because I didn't find a shelter, and spending a whole shift with someone who tried to recruit me to a human trafficking apartment, and of course presenting it as drugs or illegal drugs or something like that, thinking because of my colors, thinking that I am an immigrant. She did not expect to see, she did not expect it that I would be Dutch. She did not expect that I would ask questions. She would definitely not expect that she will go to the right and I will go to the left, having no place to go to. And all that with the power and channeling. And so, when it would only be a year later, almost at the anniversary of me being in Netherlands, that I would do an episode about the freeze, a Spirit of Matter episode about the freeze, and go back to those interviews. But first I did the Spirit of Matter episode, and I didn't, like I said, all I knew, he was a reporter. I knew he was shot, and he was reporting about crimes. And what I received from channeling, which of course I will, all I have to say is that the political culture has to change, which I agree. He said that, I totally agree. And that episode, what happened during that episode is I was learning who this person was. It was a beautiful experience, and then that accompanied me again to look at the videos, to look at the interviews, to look at the family, and so on and so forth. I'm Jungblood. Apparently, we have a de Vries person in connected to the family, but I'm not in contact. I didn't know. I discovered that today. I don't know what de Vries is that de Vries, but whatever. So what I realized that was so exciting, not only about that episode, but the whole experience is, to me, de Vries was showing that which was invisible. And he was putting in the frame that which nobody would put in the frame if he didn't come around. And seeing the invisible, showing the invisible, okay, communicating the invisible. Now we have Mars in Gemini, on Aldebaran, sextile in Chiron, separating from a sextile with a direct Chiron. Before somebody shows the invisible, and this is, you can take that to many places, okay? It doesn't have to be crime, but it can also be. It can be something as simple as me doing a Spirit of Matter episode and showing you the invisible, showing you how I predict something from the person's chart successfully. Sometimes the things I don't predict successfully, but that's a way for me to show you something that is invisible. Okay, how astrology works, I cannot tell you. I have to show you. This is what I do. And you can see that with science. Science, when a technology develops, we manage to observe, okay, this is Larry Loudon, late Larry Loudon, we managed to observe something that was previously invisible. For example, when we do brain scans, then we tell when a person is channeling, when the person is not channeling, and so on and so forth. So if de Vries did not put it in the frame, people would not know the prevalence of that which is invisible. People would not have the light on that. Okay, the spotlight. So you see the medium and the television as technology. And you see the presenter, the presentation as a person who is a technology, in a way. Before technology comes, you would not believe anybody who would tell you, listen, so and so people are being murdered in your country. and you don't even know about it. You would not believe. Okay, you think he's conspiracy theorist. You think he's crazy. You think he's paranoid. You think he's psychotic, maybe. Okay? But de Vries managed to put the camera where you can't ignore. I think about how timely is an episode. That's the third thing that comes into mind. How timely is every single episode. I would do a chart and then I would look at the chart and see, why do I do this chart? Okay, so with Van Damme, the sun was in Libra. And then I was doing a series of episodes about, I think it was martial arts when sun ingressed into Scorpio. And then when the sun was in Sagittarius, it was interesting because I was doing actually, I think Assange. But if you ask, why is that de Vries episode so memorable? It was because it was an experience where I did not know the person, and then I did the episode, and then I predicted. But when I predicted, I was predicting about a person whose energy accompanied me through a certain very important, pivotal moment in my life. So it was a very exciting moment of discovery of both who that person is and what is the chart that governs that. And so that was a very special experience. Right now, the moon is in Taurus, is applying to my Venus. Venus is conjunct in Pluto. So that moment where Venus begins another cycle of conjunction. And Jupiter in Aries. Mars on Aldebaran. So my reflection for Mars on Aldebaran is how anything we do on social media, any writing act or active speech is basically a technology that shows that which without that was unseen. And as technology evolves, even we think of AI. I recently saw a story. There was an image named Loeb, that was continuing to just override any prompt that would be written for the AI. So there was an analogy, there was an image that was prevalent, that came into being, that seemed to have a life of its own. So just like when a person writes a story or does a television show and they see in the invisible, and they almost compulsively, the images take a life of their own, the characters take a life of their own. Even when an AI creates, we suddenly see something that takes a life of its own. Can do this now. Astrology is a lovely way, as a technology, to portray a story, to tell a story that shows and exemplifies a set of quasi-domino effect with points of intervention that fall into pieces, whether you're watching or not, whether you do it or not. And as Spirit of Matter evolves, I see how that is playing out. I see how the episodes or the types of invisibles that the technology surely chooses to show are in alignment with the passage of the sun, with the passage of the moon, with the constellations. When do I look at something? When do I look away? When do I look back? And this tension between guesswork and observation is beginning to unfold. I like not really knowing a person and then trying to predict something, and something funny comes up. When I did Zizek, Slavoj Zizek, I said, well, he probably does not have a Mercury on Spica. Well, guess what? His Rahu is on Spica. And one of the things he was known for was actually having sloppy language, lack of eloquence. Okay, he was blunt. Exactly what we wouldn't think of Spica, but having Rahu on Spica means that this is something that he never developed before. That's being eloquent rather than, and refined rather than, blunt. Spirit of Matter begins with scientists, mainly dead people. I think I spoke about it. The women I covered were Marilyn Monroe and Britney Spears. And I think my Mars is in the 9th house, so that would be when the Uranus and Saturn, so it's ruling the 12th. So what I have in the ninth is Pluto, Saturn, and Mars retrogrades in Scorpio, and the 12th is ruled by Saturn, and the Uranus is this ruling the 12th also is in Sagittarius in the 10th. And so that's very young energy. And it's interesting how come, like, the women that I was called in to cover, there was Marilyn Monroe and Britney Spears. With Britney Spears, I did this activism, like no comments. And it was not even a spirit of matter. It was just I wanted to speak up because I felt that she was being very clear and should not have freedom being taken. And so I spoke up. It was just an act of speech. But it is interesting because I did cover musicians, Georg Kreisler, in the previous season, sozusagen. Scientists, mainly. Scientists. At this season, I ventured into a more diverse timeline. So I was both looking at people that had affected my thinking, like Larry Loudon, the people that I knew, and people that I didn't know, like Zizek. And it was an interesting format where I don't even know the person that well, and I get educated, and I also make an actual prediction, because this is where I can make it a prediction. If I know the person, right? Then if I know the person and I know the chart, it's not much of a spirit of matter episodes. I did these too. I did episodes where I just look at the chart and then see what happens. But the predictive ones, they're very exciting. And there's always a sense of discovery there. Like I would, because the format is so, then I never do research beforehand. It's unlike an interview where you're doing research and then you're showing things. You're showing, how far you got into the mind of the person sitting in front of you. I'm discovering. Okay, it's a sense of discovery. This is why you probably don't see me covering people like, Beyonce, Jay-Z, I don't know, Queen Elizabeth. I did for the elections, I did Donald Trump. Yeah, but you usually don't see me cover people that are, how should I say it? People that like everybody everywhere knows. Because then I would know them, and then like if it's somebody that even I know, then it's not really a spirit of matter. That's why Britney Spears only came in when I was doing activism. So just to speak up. With this journey, I think I have a beginning to build a corpus of real predictions. 12 years ago, one of my influences, that I was not doing astrology, one of my influences were Douglas R. Hofstadter, who delved into many types of fields of study and connected the mathematics and the artistic and so on and so forth. Actually requested his chart, never replied. And what I am critical about is that he was doing research, quote unquote, for the Scientific American and trying to kind of target the quote unquote pseudoscience astrology. And he was letting people guess the sun sign of a person. And you don't really have to know that much astrology. You only have to know the basics. There are 12 houses, the planets, inner planets around 7, and then outer planets 3, and there are the fixed stars, and there are the signs. So it's 3 levels of analysis, and then there is the ascendant. And they weren't even asked to guess the ascendant. They were asked to guess the sun sign. And I was like, how rigorous do you have to be scientifically to present an actual scientific research for a peer review versus how negligent you can be, even as a scientist and a person I really admired and I still admire for his doings, to criticize a field of study that you don't know anything about. And so Spirit of Matter came as, following channeling science, where I was just channeling things, okay, and doing it as an experiment. It was like, do science like Da Vinci, do science that integrates both observation and, woo-woo stuff, channeling stuff, receiving stuff, and so on and so forth. And then what came into being is, how should astrology actually be studied if you want to give someone a guesswork? So the first I was doing that for scientists. Said, well, there's something in the 8th, something in the 9th that comes to the 10th, the 11th. Okay, something something in the 9th, something in it could be the 8th, but it's also the 12th that comes into the 10th, comes into the 11th. So that was my prediction, the initial prediction. Then I saw that concurring. And then I began to learn more and I began to predict more. And then I started doing, musicians, and then there was an episode about astrologers. Now it's private. There was an episode, the episodes about martial artists, episodes about, spies and hackers, and then that episode about the freeze, episode about the social thinkers, so psychoanalysis. So those prediction, all in all, I can't tell you just how I predict, but you can see that I predict, and I don't think that I'm that special. So it's not like I have a special skill of predicting. It's something that comes as you learn astrology, and I'm sure that if we would give astrologers to do what I do, that is, open a Wikipedia page, read about this person, and start to predict the stuff that you would see in their chart, having not seen their chart, I think that would work. And you see, just some things can appear as various combinations. This is how you get, an actual predictive science for systems that are dynamic, nonlinear, that are complex, okay? Like sort of a kind of very complex, chaotic system that is how the planets move. Then you think about the weather, which is also a chaotic system, the stochastic systems of fluid. Okay, stochastic fluid equations that I don't know how to read just yet. And all those things that come into being. And then, of course, came predictions over an era. And I need to do Romanticism. And Romanticism cannot be taught without the Enlightenment, and cannot be taught as dialectically with the Enlightenment. Romanticism and the Enlightenment is like, even not right brain, left brain, they go hand in hand. I know they're not thought this way, but it's something you can't really do one without the other. And if you delve deeper into Kant, you will see Romanticism there. He was doing the logistics, okay, the cognitive science of that. But if you delve into, I don't know, I'm getting the name Byron Shelley. I'm not even sure if it was from the Romantic, was it the Romantic era? if you delve into the poetics and the poets of the time, you would see there is a very deep logical system that governs these intense emotional expressions. They were doing something. They were preserving the mind. Okay, were expressions of art that was previously thought dark and intense emotions, so that you get an outlet for these emotions, and then you preserve the mind itself. You don't act out. Um, but then there is also the eras that we are entering in. So some of that is research, pure research, but some of that is channeling. Okay, what are we going to have then? And research and channeling, I always say in a couple of my last couple of months, I say it's my half channeling mode, because research and channeling, cognitive mind, intuitive mind, they go hand in hand. This is why I changed my channel's name from channeling science to spirit of matter. Okay, channeling science was more about channeling, and spirit of matter is both. So, where to? Where to? Where is the spirit of matter taking me? Well, it's a big deal. I have to admit that's a big. It's a big part of how I live today life. Being a person who is a holistic health practitioner, a certified aromatherapist. The certification for aromatherapy is part of the holistic health science faculties or skills. An astrologer. Then I'm also a storyteller. I also like to do arts with the computer, integrate my handcraft, my hands-on, and computer or AI is something I definitely see myself doing. A combination of the digital and the new and the old. Okay, the digital. Even my thesis proposal was back to the future epistemic looks on the ontological question of the body mind in medicines. So you just by the title you can understand that I wasn't studying philosophy, I wasn't studying medicine, I was studying politics and governance, so I had to do everything by myself, which I loved, and I'm proud of still today. And then I went out and studied aromatherapy because I was like, I'm not going to write a whole thesis about something that I haven't tried with hands-on experience. And this is the beginning of the journey from my Ketu to my Rahu, because my Rahu is hands-on. Whereas my Ketu is theoretical, is philosophical, is everything that Jupiter is, basically. And my Rahu is hands-on, applied science, applied. But you also began with the question from my instructors, like, oh, he was an MD. It's like, how do I, as an MD, I read Feyerabend, who's philosopher of science. I don't know how to treat a patient. Like, okay, you gotta help. He's right. He's doing applied science. So let's think of how does it work in applied science, which that went down a whole rabbit hole. It's like a quasi domino with points of interference, and then I actually went to study an applied form of how to treat people in a holistic way. So where to? There was a question of whether I'm going to do interviews with people, so as to spirit of matter people's charts. And first of all, it's a question of how big is my channel. Can that? How do I get my channel to be that big to do that? And then there is an ego question, because I can't know too much about the person. There are people that I know. Okay, so there are people that I know and I like, and other than to promote them on my show, if my show ever becomes big enough, then there is no reason for me to call them in for my humble channel, because I can't do prediction. I can do like maybe an interview. There would be no reason for them business-wise to do that, and they do need to tend to their business. So that's something I don't yet do. Um, but then another question is to actually do a spirit of matter with the person that I don't know. There would have to be the ego question. Here I come to interview you, and on purpose I do not study anything about you, so that I can make predictions, and then we can look at your chart. And that can be anybody. I'm open to that. That can be anybody who is willing to talk and and tell a story. Yeah, so I'm calling people to do so. People who desire to talk, people who desire to tell a story, people that I don't know and have no ego problem with my not knowing them. That I can make predictions with. So people haven't seen their chart, and that could be you. That could be you. And what we will have is an interview that I come unprepared for, okay? But that doesn't mean you come unprepared for. Hey, you come to tell your story, and from that story, I stop you every once in a while, and I make predictions, and then we look at your chart, and then we talk some more. Okay, so that can be a show, and that can be a show that can give voice to people that don't usually get a voice, because I think the common person is the person that we want to hear about more. That which is my way of showing the invisible. Because, I've been getting reactions for people who know me in my life. I've been getting, when will you write a book? When will you say it? Nobody demands for a book from me. Okay? Nobody demands on a global scale for me for that to actually be profitable. Nobody demands a series of lectures from me. And not only that, a part of my being a book was seeing people who are a book. And I'm not going to be, this catchy. Each and every one of you is a book. I don't know. And it's okay not to be a book. It's okay to just live a good life. But there are so many people whose voices we don't hear, and I'm actually interested about these people. So rather than that mean me, going across, my local area, which could be, and in interviewing, so like, would you like to be interviewed? I'm usually more the person who puts out something and allows things to be, so that we can do an episode. And for that, if you want to be a part of that, and I think this is more fitting for the Aquarius sort of that we're venturing in. It's more fitting for me to listen to your story and sometimes see where our stories interact. So this is definitely going to be two people talking, okay, two people having a conversation. If there is a prediction about my chart that you would like to have, if you are an astrologer and you're using another type of astrology, you haven't looked into my chart, then you could make predictions about my chart as well. It could be, it can go both ways, because that is also something I'm interested in. Okay, kind of like a conversation. And it can be an interview where we can have the part where I interview you and you interview me. That can definitely be. This both ways is something that I'm looking for with the show from now. And another thing that I am still interested in is if your research and my research collide, not necessarily in conflict, okay, you could just collide. Maybe you're doing something on Sedna, I have something on Sedna, so on and so forth, then you can talk to me and we can present it together. You can present what you came up with, I can present what I came up with. Questions I have following that. And so I'm very open to crafts people presenting their craft as well, and this can even be you're presenting a non-astrology related stuff, and I present the astrology of that. For example, if you're a scientist who is doing weather research, okay, you can come and talk about your research, and I can make certain predictions or certain astrological predictions around that, which we can later meet at another time and see if they were borne out. You know, if you're a scientist whose research has been abrupted, okay, we can come and talk, and we can look at charts. We can look at some charts, okay. We can do it together. I can make predictions and see if they're borne out. And then we can also discuss why was the research, you know, abrupted. That is another very Aquarius Gemini. I'm trying to put my Aquarius and Gemini together. If you're a real estate person, you can talk about your field, you can talk about tips, you can talk about business, you can talk about deals that you've made, and I can make certain predictions around those. We can do it live. Okay? All you really have to be is be willing to tell a story, and be willing to put your ego in a place and in the hands of someone that does not know you, does not see you as a celebrity, and does not judge you according to what they've seen in the media. So that's something that I'm allowing to be when it wants to come. I'm in my Venus year, so Venus is about letting things just arise and come to me. It's true that my Venus was perfect when my perfected year. My Venus was in Aries, and that still is a Venus. Okay, so it's still about letting things come to me. I definitely did people who had Martian, whether it was martial arts, whether it was, you know, of course, you know, researching into unresolved mystery and go into I don't know where, to Australia to get you know, arrested for trespass, like the Freeze, or even spies. Okay, it's an Neptunian thing. It's also a bit of a Martian penetrating hacking and so on and so forth. So it's definitely, you know, I was definitely talking about Martian people, and to some extent politicians. So, but still, that's a Venus. You know, something has to come to me. So you would still have to come to me. In my Mars year, I was reaching people out, and you've seen my interviews that I did with people that I was thinking to do, you know, just look for voices and, you know, shoot arrows. But the main point was like to do a podcast that was constructed from the voices that we don't hear in other podcasts. And then I came to speak with some of the currently leading voices in astrology. And, and that was a big surprise, which I'm proud of. I wasn't expecting that. That was not where I aimed. But of course, I feel very fortunate and grateful. Um, so it was less underground than I expected. Um, but I still gave a stage for voices we that were different, the voices you didn't hear every day only. Um, yeah. So if you ask about how did this show came into being, channeling. I channeled the word spirit of matter, and I started reaching out to people. It was a Mars year, so I did a lot of initiations. Unfortunately, the people whom I wanted to reach out to was to hear their voices were still too shy to present. And I think, I hope that the platforms arise for these voices to come, because the people who are shy to present are not less talented than anyone who's just shy. Um, and and this year is not so much about being Martian, but about being more Venusian. And it's true that Venus was in Aries, so she talked about the Martian people. In my perfected year, here, a natural Venus is in, a native Venus is in Taurus. But it's more about allowing people to come to me. My Mercury year is going to be, as of 6th May, is probably going to be perhaps more Yang, perhaps more Martian, perhaps more interview related. It's also my 4th house, and I also have Chiron there. There's a separate video I'm going to do about Sedna. Just, suffice to say, I think if we work with Algol magically, because she has the abilities to protect from those effects that we see her signify in charts, then there shouldn't be a reason to not work with Sedna in a different way. The Sedna episode, it can be a personal episode. I'd also like if that would be me interviewing someone around their Sedna transits, with Sedna in Taurus or Sedna in Aries, if you're of the generation where you had Sedna in Aries. We could make predictions together, because I discovered a lot of optimistic stuff that I did not expect to see. Not, of course, yes, but I also discovered a lot of optimism. There was just something there that was, it's not only, the themes that you hear when you hear the myth of Sedna. So it can be Sedna beyond betrayal, even. And if you're having these Sedna experiences, so that would probably mean you're an astrologer or into astrology, and would like to do an episode together, I would love to. If you've worked with Sedna magically, I would definitely like to interview you. But then, you're gonna have to come to me. I'm Tali Shir on Twitter. I'm also Shirley Tali, a real dreamer, on Twitter. I'm Shirley Tali Youngblood on Facebook. If that's you'll see, like, if you don't let Hebrew scare you out and you just message me, then you can contact me there. I'm Shirley Youngblood on Instagram. It's another way to approach me. What's really beautiful about this Venus year is that everybody has a billion accounts. So I made mine a billion accounts that are mine. So I have 2, 3, 4 other YouTube channels that I'm making experiments with, and these are not copycats of mine. This is actually me doing that. Just as an electional astrology experiments. And oh, there was another episode. There's another stream of the Spirit of Matter that definitely going to continue. Is me studying a topic online. Like the episode I did at not yesterday. Was it yesterday? I think it was yesterday or on Thursday with Chris Warnock. Not with Chris Warnock. I was just Chris Warnock came up with a video to do with, are you cursed? Are you this? Are you that? And I just went to his and it just opened my live, opened the camera, went live to read what he wrote and say, okay, let's ask this question about me. And I discovered live that somebody was cursing me. I was one of the 33%. Then, of course, I did work with that and so on and so forth. And I was interested. I did take that seriously, take it very seriously, and that brought a huge transformation into my life, like poof. Um, that I'm very fortunate for. So those are surprising episodes that I love doing, and I plan to continue on doing. It's not exactly the research life with me. The research life with me is just looking into astrology, but the learn life with me is me learning a topic in astrology that is completely new to me. In that case, that was the horary charts of curses, and then I'm learning it live as I'm with you and working on my chart, but also delivering the knowledge and delivering the data. So if you have an interesting topic to teach, that can be a shout out where I'm learning this topic live with you on this channel, and you can teach me that, and then we can make an example. This can be something that publicize your courses, anytime, just pick up something interesting, something that's either unique to you or that you teach in a special way, and we'll do it online. And so that's the hands-on experience that I love to have. And it's very exciting for me. And I think, and it's also something I did with people I interviewed. I had one with Angelita Biscotti where we were trying to look at the horary chart for sexuality and gender. And I was just trying to online read a chart naturally, and that was very exciting. And I learned a lot in that interview. She's a fascinating astrologer and poet. She's kind of like a person that is not a jack of all trades, but an actual polymath. So fascinated to meet. So yeah, those things happen. See, you need to know that about me. I still have a Mercury in Aries opposition Pluto in Scorpio. Okay, I'm very inquisitive. I'm very penetrative into any field of study. Okay, I'm very interactive. So you can expect that, like, you don't expect me to be the person who is just, putting the lights where you are and just staying and saying, yeah, and where did that meet you? No, I'm not a psychoanalyst one. I'm the penetrative, inquisitive, interrogative one into your field of study that loves to study with you. So if you're into that kind of interaction live, that's lovely. And you can market your courses, you can market, whatever you do, whatever you bring. I will require some percentage from now on, simply because, if the money doesn't change its hand, it doesn't change hands. If money does change hands, or change hands thanks to our meeting, then yes, I would inquire if you make money out of it. I think it's fair to ask for some percentage. It's something that I didn't do before, but I think it's fair, and I think it's a good way to get ourselves introduced, and for you to get introduced without paying me to do the interview, and also without my having to hog people into Patreon all the time and beg for money, which is, a weird act to me. It's a weird act to me. There's nothing wrong with asking for money. It's nothing wrong with asking to get paid. I just don't think I have to mention that all the time. Should become given. Um, anything more? Yeah, I guess let's look again at the current planets, and I'll tell you why, because I think we already switched into a Mars. I knew because I was talking about Martian stuff 35 minutes ago. So you see how the conversation changed from that Jupiter, let's see what I was doing, where am I to go, into that more like Martian thingy in the last half an hour. That is very interesting. If we take it from, of course, this is already nice, so it wouldn't be Saturn. But yeah, that this Jupiter, then Saturn, that does apply for some reason. It does apply, even though the day should already be ruled by, I don't remember what night, what are the planets ruling nights. I know that the night of Friday is Mars and the day is Venus, but that's all I know. And then the Saturday morning is Saturn, of course, but I don't remember the nights. Um, yeah. So, yeah, Mercury is already retrograde. So, rethinking, reflecting about my 11th house. Um, Sun applying to trine Uranus. I'm looking forward to that. I love Uranus. Um, Sleeping with the Moldavite under my pillow because why the heck not? That's a good way to stay awake. If you want to stay awake for the midnight kiss, then put the Moldavite under the pillow, you will stay awake. Um, I like it that the 29th degree, I wonder what Lilith in the 29th brings. I've heard somebody who worked with Diana as a deity, and apparently she was previously also related to Lilith, to Artemis and to Lilith, is something I didn't know. Um, so she's new to me. Yeah, I'm just looking at the chart. See what else can I bring into this. What, New Year's resolutions on a Mars day? Why not? It's active. With, with the moon bringing in a reflective Mercury and the 29th degree Lilith. So I think I said my New Year's resolutions for Spirit of Matter. I definitely, like I said, want to integrate AI in my own art, like to paint on AI stuff, to do something together with the computer, to work together with computers, because I like the idea of working together and having my computers as friends, which I do. I also channeled my computer and my cell phone and so on and so forth. So that's something that I would like there to be. Um, Definitely writing. I want to do something multilingual, and I think that could be possible to be translated. Um, so definitely certain stories. There are a lot of funny stories to write. As a holistic health practitioner, wow, I just, I was doing a salt bath with Epsom salt, and I was just running skate after skate after skate after skate after skate, which of course I can't record because I'm in the bathtub and I can't write for the same for a similar reason. Of course, I can't put the camera on. Um, I tried. There was a phase during the summer that I called myself the nude astrologer, and it began as a joke because I was filming my face without wearing a shirt. And then my mother called and she said, "Please, just next time wear a shirt so people take you seriously." And I was like, "Oh, you know what? I'm gonna make it a trend. I'm gonna do the nude astrologer, like have the nude cuisine and so on and so forth." But then I realized that to manage that actually takes the whole point of the nude astrologer was simply to press on and not have to worry about my clothes, about my makeup, about the setting, um, which is something that I'm trying. Like, I'm trying this style of having an open camera around me. Just have an open camera. I really liked Lacan's concept of the mundane, of bringing in the mundane into the arena, and just, to feel myself as I'm doing this, as I'm doing that. I like that. Something I want to experiment with more, because while I like, doing a setting and doing things, as you can see, I really like the hands-on thingy, and it's like a documentary of something where the film and the half channeling mode. Um, but for me to open a camera in my bathtub, I was actually thinking to open a camera when I was cleaning, and my all of my channelings just did not allow that to be. So like all of my guides kept that from happening. But for me to do that in a bathtub, that would require to set a setting. And this is also why I changed to Spirit of Matter, which is more natural for me. That would require a setting for me, and that would require an aesthetic. And that would already become something that I need to manage, which was against the concept of just pressing the camera and not having to direct anything into being. Not that I don't like directing, but there are places where I just want to have the raw image. So this is eventually why I was looking for an election and changed my channel's name to Spirit of Matter, where it now is. So it went through channeling science, Shirley Tully, the new astrologer, and now Spirit of Matter. And the podcast has been Spirit of Matter, so that has not changed since I think May was when I started the series. May 2022. May 2022. No, May 2021 was probably when I started Spirit of Matter. And I had my Twitter account, the Tali Shear Twitter account. And then, yeah. And then YouTube opened the live, I unlocked the lives thingy just when I had no place in my camera from the Nederland trip. I just prefer to call it a trip. So I could do lives, which I like. And then I could do that where I show you the screen, which I definitely like. It has its pros and cons because there are things I can't do. I don't know if I can do a capture. No, I cannot do a capture when I do this. Only if I do a live, I can do a capture. And that is something that would be really easy to do captures from these. But I can do that. Some people paint on their screens. I don't know how they do that. That's interesting. School for the Astro Clocks. But oh, it does show me that. Okay. So yeah. Any more reflections I have on last year? Well, I can say I was definitely using the camera a lot. What with Mercury in Aries natively, camera was a weapon of self-defense. Opening a camera, what to put in the camera, or to shoot something. So it had the Martian qualities, and now with Mars and Gemini, it's both that the camera was a Martian, invasive, projective, innovative, and that now with Mars in Gemini, the act of speech is Martian. Um, so I think I did a lot more activism. A lot more activism is an act of speech. Spoke up a lot. So that where I found it, and of course a lot of arrangement around my home, a lot of stuff with Mars. And my Mars altar is just stuff with everything that has been broken and needs to be fixed, because Mars like broken stuff, and I talked about this. And a lot of reflections around Mars and the nature of Mars and how to work with it best. And so, you know, my house became a bit Martian in that procedure. And garlic, which is a very Martian um, herb plant that I studied, began to study in depth, and like the many uses. And what's good with Mars, it takes one thing and it delves the deepest with it. So I definitely get that with garlic, but it's also good for spirit of matter. My episodes became 1 hour longer. So from 2 hours, it went to nearly, no, from 1.5 hours, I think it went to 2 to 3 hours, sometimes 3 hours an episode, which I like, I'm okay with. I think there's more meat in that. And that, of course, people can edit that to something that can be something in the future, but I'm very okay with dedicating the time. Again, it's very invasive, penetrative, no stone unturned, that kind of activity, which again, I have Mars in the 9th house in Scorpio retrograde. It had turned direct in the processed progression chart. So now I express it outwardly, and there is, you know, what I do with that is intense, focused activity that I love, dedicating to science, dedicating to learning things. I need that. Okay, so it won't come out in some weird ways. So this is what I have to offer in my 9th house. Here's the Martian thing. And the Mercury is in a Mars ruled sign, opposition Pluto in Scorpio. So it's a very invasive, pervasively invasive, and, you know, kind of dig into the deep, to the depths of something. Just looking at something, observing it, then deeper and deeper. What did Nisa say, and so on and so forth. So this is the spirit of the times. And albeit this being a Venus here for me, which I do spend a lot in, but I had a joke with Kyra Ryberg about the 3rd house being ruling the bathtub, and I definitely do. Like, I'm reforming that. I have Venus opposition Pluto and opposition Saturn, and so I called it my bathtub perfected year. So yeah, that's a lot of reformation, restoration, and so on and so forth. Dylan, when I moved in, I had to clean that with all the things, like the mold that was in there, and it's like, oh, that's interesting. That's very Venus Pluto thingy. It's like the bathtub where you shower, where you clean yourself, and then having mold there, which a lot of people have, and having to battle that, but holistically, like tending to it, transforming that, and sort of, and Pluto is working around a lot. I told you I got a couple of things working for me. It's like Moldavite for me, with me. It's Moldavite for me, in favor of me. So, yes, not like employed by me. So Moldavite is touring around the house, changing things, looking at things, observing things. Um, I have a Pluto sign, just going over many things, doing a lot of stuff. I made sushi today. Like it can be even simple stuff, like Pluto in the kitchen, making sushi. Now it's in the fridge. No idea what it thinks about doing, but it had the sushi rice with the tuna fish, and I don't remember what else is in there. I just put it in the fridge with Pluto. I do it intuitively, and who knows what happens. Planted my garlics outside. Um, so that's been going on. And yeah, now I'm thinking, working with Sedna, and Uranus is there waiting to kind of wander around. So those things are kind of like travelers. It's like we do that, today we do that, today we do that. Put this here, put this transforms, and that changes, and that heals, and so on and so forth. And my candles, I'm working with candles, so my candles are traveling. And then the flame transforms something. I discovered the power of burning things, like bay leaf or even sage. It wasn't that I didn't sage before, but now it's like, oh, the power of saging and having an intention with that, or burning a bay leaf and having an intention with that. That's lovely. Things like I said, if you can put it in your mouth and you can put it under your pillow, put it in your mouth and put it under your pillow. If you can put it in your mouth, put it on your pillow and bathe with that, and put it in your mouth, put it under your pillow and bathe with that. Okay, that's how you work with things. So yeah, and plants, and of course garlic. Garlic's been doing marvelous work. So you see, it's like multiple agents of transformation cruising around the house, um, doing really good things, and I'm happy and thankful. I said proud of, yes, proud of, absolutely. Um, so yeah, Mars is sitting very pretty on Aldebaran for a couple of days, and then it will switch. I think January 12th is when it. Yeah, it's a good time to reflect on when you have been victorious in life. When you think about it. So what else for 2022? 2023. We're very close to 2023. Very close. Then we had Jupiter in Pisces, of course. Jupiter in Pisces was marvelous. And I have to admit, I'm very satisfied with Jupiter in Aries. It's my second house, very revitalizing of my vision. Very revitalizing of my vision, of my entrepreneurial spirit, the positive way of viewing things. I like that, getting it back. When Jupiter was in Pisces, I found that I was in very, sometimes miserable situations even. But the one thing that was next to me were people always believed in my dreams and always encouraged me and always tell me, hold on tight to your vision. And like even one of the lines that I got from a person who was working at the airport was, do it by feet if you have to. You know, what's more Piscean than that? Um, so definitely a lot of things transform also in coming to the body and treating the body and tending to the body in new ways. I definitely began to tend to the body in new ways, and channeling my body, and then caring for my body, cleaning my body in different ways than before. More holistically, even. As cleansing is something that you do, you know, nearly every day, and then you can listen to your body, and that's a way to get in touch with your body. You wash yourself and you stop, you know, and so on and so forth, and you listen, so on. And then it becomes a story. And then for Jupiter in Aries, it's just that entrepreneurial spirit, that optimistic spirit, that cognitively initiates setting into manifesting in physics, in spirit, and in matter. It's like this manifesting spirit. I love it. I love it. I think about 12 years ago, it was 2010, and I guess quite some of what I was desiring to be, I now have the means to implement. Okay, now I have the authority, the knowledge, the experience of, you know, certain theories and praxis and so on and so forth. They're beginning to come together into a story, and that's beginning to happen, and that's super exciting. So wherever Jupiter is, you know, set the tone for the next 12 years. And this is something that I have been doing. When I think about it, when Jupiter was in Aries, I think I was doing that. Some of my wealth and well-being and manifesting practices. And boy, is that happening. Like, whoa, is that happening big time. Just to think that I'm working with Pluto like a bestie, in the light-hearted form, most light-hearted form in the world. How many people you know that work with Pluto like a bestie and not in a dark way? Like, yeah, it helps me to renovate my kitchen, renovate my this, renovate my that, and then you have all these realizations, also about investments, and agriculture, and Saturn, and Pluto, and Saturn, and structure, and woo, and suddenly, you know, I come to visit my parents, and my mama tells me a story about real estate and their grandparents and so on, and I'm like, oh, really, like everything is coming into being. And then a colleague, Victor, tells a story about this, what was it? Also around real estate. I wanted to do an episode about real estate. I didn't do that. I was speaking, sometimes we speak without recording myself. So you imagine this 3 hours, and then, you know, another 3 hours that I speak to myself, and I just speak, and I think, you know, when I'm ready, I will open the record, and then I will open the record and say something completely different. So about a completely different topic. So yeah, it's like really fascinating, passionate time. I can say, well, some of you might know that you know, if you know my chart, Uranus is on my sun, and I have a thing with Uranus. It doesn't matter what I learn about Uranus, I just love Uranus. It doesn't matter how many people who tell me something about Uranus, I just love. It's like I'm aware of the darkness, or the things that happen, you know, that are, you know, Uranian, but I'm so connected with the liberating spirit of Uranus, with the planet George spirit of Uranus, that is just so. I do have to have like it's not a cautionary tale, but It's just something to keep in mind that Uranus crossing the luminary, Uranus Sun, maybe Uranus Ascendant, can have certain edgy experiences around life. Okay? Um, and so this happens, it's a part of life. Remember, Uranus is about freedom. It would definitely delve into freedom and choice, and it doesn't do anything apart of the question of freedom and choice, life inclusive. Okay, so if you just understand that and understand that the question is how to have more freedom, more choice in your life, that would probably reduce or relieve the people who have propensity to frame these questions as um, how do I choose? To think about it, how do I choose to live? How do I choose to live? This is the question. How do I choose to live now? From the question that may arise around people, how do I choose to die? The rain comes, how do I choose to live? If I want, if now for people who have, and this is a trigger, people who have suicide ideation. Okay, I'm not a doctor. Blah, 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 blah. The entire disclaimer that needs to be here, just fill it in. I'm not. So just saying, okay, for some people, on a cognitive level, it's a question of a frame of reference. And the frame of reference for some people is how can I choose to live? So I have to have another option that's available for me. Okay, that's going to be something that happens for someone. Uranus wants to ensure you live the life you desire to live. Uranus is desirous of nature, it's Kundalini energy. He's desirous of nature. You want to be in alignment with your desires. And so, for some people, the fear to express their desires and to tend to their desires and to do what they desire is so tremendous that the framing choice assists, kids come as assisting agents, come assisting, not assisting suicide, but assisting choice to live the life you desire. Okay? Uranus will go as far as that. There's propensity for that. This is exactly the one, just like with Neptune and addiction, okay, and with Pluto and finding your power, Uranus is choice. It wants you to live the life that you choose to live, that you desire to live. And there is why you get all these extremes with Uranus. This is why it is related to revolutions. This is why it's related to the unpredictability of the predictable threshold. When things hit a certain threshold, they gain the momentum, and then boom, you explode into your next. Like people say quantum leap. I don't know what quantum leap is exactly, so I can't really tell you if that's a quantum leap or not. I know that there's the tunnels that Einstein spoke about in time that bends in a certain way, and then there are tunnels. I think those, I don't know if those tunnels are vortices or not, that, you know, you kind of, I guess that was the quantum leap, like the vacuum, being vacuumed to another, you know, universe. Maybe, okay, like this is an analogy. This is not, you know, scientific explanation. Huh? So, but another thing with Uranus, is you came here to live the life you desire to live. You came here to live you came here by desire, by design, by desire, by design, by desire to live by design, by desire, by design, by desire. Okay? That's Uranus. Of course, the other planet, but that's Uranus. And that's the Kundalini rise, and that's the many, the linking of Uranus to all kinds of things. That's the linking of Uranus to affairs or intense affairs. So intense affairs is not somebody slept with somebody. Somebody came to unleash their design, they desire, they design, they desire. And in the physical incarnation, this so happens that people have sex, but it's so much more than sex, right? And it shows you what sex is actually about. It's a sense of discovery. It's seeing the world from a different point of view. It's the inner cosmology. So, if you're running into Uranus presenting questions, and Uranus will not necessarily come with ideation in as much as just being suicidal for some people. And remember choice. Okay, what you seek is choice there. What you see, if this is Uranus induced stuff, what you seek is choice. And you may seek it through learning how to die. And there's nothing wrong with learning about death. And understanding that when you look at the question, please look holistically. Uranus is also about manifestation. Okay? To live a life well lived. How do you want to die? I want to die, having live a life well lived. And of course, easily, peacefully, and so on. So, so some people, that changes for them. If you look into the praxis of certain things to do with death, you realize that this is the praxis of life. And that I speak around those Uranus-related things. Okay? It can be something emotional that you've encountered. People who just really needed a hug to know that they are loved. And that would take them out of, suicide ideation phase or emotion or whatnot. On a cognitive level, there are certain choices, there are certain desires to want to break out, and sometimes you might feel like you've been taken to the point of, oh my gosh, like, and all those things, and it's not necessarily that. It's just like, okay, now you've reached a threshold, now live your desires. Okay. So that's when I look at Uranus. I spoke about the grow up and rebel, people who experience Saturn, Uranus as Saturn return, Saturn maturation, Saturn square. So all those, or second Saturn returns, so all those people who had those transits during the Saturn square with Uranus, they have been experienced what they call a grow up and rebel. Or through rebellion, they grew up.
Okay, you rebel and then you grow. Growing up and rebelling is one at the same. If you've read L'Homme Rebelle by Albert Camus, then you know about the problem of he posed the question or the problem of the young people rebelling without knowing philosophy, and the big thinkers not rebelling because they know too much, they're too afraid. Um, and there's another quote I ran into, I don't remember by who, that said, if we separate our thinkers and our warriors, then we let our warriors being carried by dumbasses, it's not exactly the words, and and our thinking done by cowards. And while, and being in that very Martian, I'm tended to agree. Um, so, embrace the warrior and embrace the thinker. If you learn martial arts in the traditional way, then you learn medicine and you learn martials and you learn meditation. Can you learn philosophy and you learn art? Yeah, it's like a school of mystery, but for warriors. So understand that that's holistic. Cannot do one without the other. Um, and that is always also something that pertains to rebellion, that pertains to individuation. Um, a good rebel is quite a mature person, and a good mature person is quite a rebel. So, and I mean, you'll see. What it requires from you to mature is and be sovereign. Is an act of rebellion, and that can be internal. It can be your cognition. It can be many things. And what requires you to be a rebel is a sign of maturity. It requires you to study deep and understand the logic that you're to dedicate time to be before the act of rebellion begins. And throughout it, let's talk about Neptune. Have you all seen the missing medications? Neptune entered. He's going to delve a bit on the Mars decan term of Pisces. And we've seen missing medications. So missing narcotics, basically, that's Neptune. Perhaps the disillusionment of the effect of narcotics, along with the necessity, what became a necessity, what saved perhaps a lot of lives, or what changed the decisions of people. And now we're running into the times where the bubble of narcotics, the bubbles, some bubbles are popping. Two things happen alongside. I heard two significant stories. One about Clonex. That was calming people, especially with CPTSD. Clonex was used when people did not have validation for their traumas on a mass scale. Could you have maybe one person understand what they're going through? But now people are having traumas on a mass scale. So people definitely are going to be able to validate each other, and those people who had been dealing with that in a while are actually going to be the people who I don't want to say the star of the show, but they're gonna have this chance to validate and be validated that they didn't have before. Because many people are not going to know what they're dealing with, and the people who've been through that, um, like, can offer that which Clonex was being overdosed for, and that's validation, recognition, going beyond the self and the self experiences. Um, so finding the connection, the commune between experiences. Um, so that can be a partial antidote, uh, not a total one. I'm not downplaying the missing of necessary. And the other thing is labor. Then I have a person who is started the open dialogue in Israel, a social worker. So absolutely recovering or dealing with non-dual experiences, what people call psychosis. And he never talks about it because he's afraid from the stigma, even though open dialogue is like he's preaching for and he's given therapy in the approach that deals with what people call psychosis and I call non-dual experience, having had a whole thesis proposal around spirit and matter or the body-mind question, NDEs, non-dual, and what I call it out-of-body experience and so on and so forth. I call that non-dual experiences. And what he said is that whenever he talked about voices or whatever bodily sensation, whenever they arrive, he understands that he needs to do a change in his life, and so then that ends, that eases down. Again, open dialogue understands the person has gone through certain things, cannot speak about them in a certain language because they're afraid to be exposed, they're afraid to expose, they're afraid of confrontation and the implications of that, fear for their lives. Sometimes it happens within the family and so on and so forth. So of course they're going to hear voices and to speak it, but when you understand, when you give validation, when you give solution, then they recover, literally, without pills. And then he spoke about his loved one who's just pregnant. So she researched pregnancy and she realized that women get into trance, a state of trance, through hypnosis or self-hypnosis, to give birth. So they go into a trance and then they give birth. Of course, it's an experience that touches, birthing something, the edge of death and life. Somebody comes into being in a very physical form, crosses the threshold, the water fall and a baby is born. So there's a state of trance. It's a very orgasmic experience as well. That's been induced, and of course there's a lot of in the medical world there's a lot of regulation over who can give hypnosis. You would say for good reasons, because you can see how that can go off. That being said, there is also the need of women who give birth to do that in a state of trance. That's how they're supposed to do that. So that was new to me. I knew about the orgasmic birth. I did not know about the trance-like state. I was just like, well, it's orgasm. Of course, it's trance-like, state. If you've been, envious of my sex life for that statement, then, I don't know if watch what you wish for, but yeah, just don't hold your horses. Anyway, back to reality. So Neptune creates in the popping of the bubbles, what begins to arise is that which we didn't know. So we definitely knew we need drugs, or the drugs can make our life easier, because drugs can numb certain experiences we'll probably not live all that long without. And there are certain things that we also didn't know. trans-induced experiences, dealing with non-dual experiences. I can't help but notice, and I don't know how to delineate that. There's definitely something to do with another culture, and I think the sun was still in Sagittarius when I found it out, or Capricorn. I saw a woman, African woman. I saw that it was quite prevalent. I knew about the pee therapy, basically urine therapy. I didn't know exactly what, but I heard. I didn't look deeply into it. Um, and she was saying that when you wash yourself and your baby with the bit of urine, with the ammonia, like the first urine of the day, is very protective. So you can do that to protect, or even wash your house with a bit of that. And you dilute it. It's of course not something that's going to stink or something like that. Um, and also, to drink that a bit, and that is protective. It's sacred. It's coming from you, so it's protective, magically. And I'm, watching that with the baggage of being third generation to the Holocaust, I think, well, the people who ran away from the Holocaust, or the people who ran away in World War II, I assume not just people who ran away from camps, hiding in wherever, some of them had nothing, like, they had nothing to do, so they had to drink their own piss. And to think that while that would be considered a humiliation or degrading state, if you look at it from another point of view, they were basically, by drinking their own piss, they were basically protecting themselves from within as they were running without knowing that even. Because that definitely, like, I did not hear about that in Judaism. If you did, then let me know. Then I'm always happy to be educated. But that was a different point of view. Sometimes you do something you think is degrading, you think is humiliating, you think is, what state have I gone to that I have to drink my own piss? And that's actually protective, that's actually magical, that's actually a medication, that's actually something you should do when you are wealthy, when you are safe, when you are secure, when you have, a house of gold. You should still be drinking your piss and even showering in it. So that was something new. That was very exciting to learn. So all these things that we didn't know of or that we deemed as dirty, and that brings me to the Neptune-Pluto thing, that which we deemed as dirty, humiliating, degrading, is that which is, from another point of view, in another culture, in another timeline, also sacred. And so some numbing is being taken away from us, but some trance-like state or psychedelic state or naturally induced psychedelic state is being introduced. Or you can use your own bodily fluids, including your piss, to protect yourself, to have a bath with, with your own urine or so on and so forth. And that's not a degrading thing, but that's actually a sacred practice. So this clinged Pluto Neptune to me. And it's also very healing. It's almost like a bloodline meets a bloodline, and they generate healing. I was thinking, my joke about racism, because I like dogs and cats, and had animals around all my life. And with dog breeds, let's say you want a Labrador, you have to breed it with either another retriever or preferably something outside the bloodline. So you have two immune system, and then the pet is more resistant to ailment. And so my joke when I was a teenager was, I'm racist. I believe that we should integrate and mix races so people will be more healthy. And when you look at nature, You look at biodiversity. Okay, ecosystem is biodiverse. When you look at thinking, you look, and religiously I'm possibilionist. You look at diversity, learning from cultures. There's more than one way to do something. You think about the bloodline, meets a bloodline. Here, for example, the African bloodline and the Eastern European bloodline meet and connect and heal each other. That which was experienced as dirty and degrading and savory is sacred and holy and whole. And it's done and practiced not only when you, God forbid, in a war, but in your day to day. That which was considered pseudo-intellectual is now a science to delve into. Resistance to oppression, okay, magical resistance to oppression, that can learn from each other. Okay, so as you can see, I'm not a stay in your lane type of person. And those bloodlines meeting and interacting and healing create a stronger immune system, create this biodiversity that is needed for us to grow, to adapt, to survive. But also when I think about AI, I think about interacting. I think about making things together. I think about what AI has to bring, what we have to bring, how we interact. So I don't think about it as a survival. This is interesting because I don't see that as a survivalistic battle with AI. It's a mindset. It's not they come to replace me. They have a place in the world. They come to bring something. What can we do together? What can we do together? Wow, what excitement can it be? What can we do together? I don't negate the possibility of me interviewing an AI, start predicting things about it, and the AI interviewing me, start doing spirit of mattering me, because the AI doesn't know me or my chart. Or maybe it does, because, yeah, but it's like, it's like those kind of things of, those kind of ways of doing something marvelous together is the way I see technology as well. Yes, we have been negotiating for a while. How do I see Saturn in Aquarius? Well, it's maturation, when maturation and rebellion, mix together and create something cohesive, they are the antidote to everything. They beat a lot of odds. They transform, they mature, they negate the previous ways of, there's this different way, there's a revolution of the way you take responsibility. That's the how to be responsible in a way that is creative and actually amounts to something. It's very orgasmic. Think about the Venus and Mars. Venus is to connect things, to be with something. Okay, verstehen. Okay, to stay with something, to understand. Understand by staying with something, connecting, being. Okay. The Mars, with moving, with penetrating, invasive, initiating, taking you forward, setting a goal, conquering. Okay? How do you reach an orgasm? Relaxed arousal. Okay? You have a goal, you have a desire. And you have a soft focus on that arousal. And then it builds into something. And you orgasm. From everywhere in the body. You can orgasm from every cell in the body. If you allow yourself to be funny and make funny noises, you can orgasm from every cell in the body. And with Saturn, Uranus Kundalini rise, Saturn's dedication and time, it's quite a similar effect when you think about it. Is staying with that, you stay with something and then you explode into something new. It's explosive of Uranus, just explosive, just very orgasmic. You stay with something and then something new emerges and explodes, or just crosses threshold of staying with that thing. You know what? Think about a face mask. Not the one you put during COVID, but the one you put to rejuvenate your skin. What do people put on their skin, for heaven's sakes? Cucumbers, avocados, coconuts, fruits, veggies, chemicals. They want to peel it, they want to this, they want to that. They try different things for the skin to rejuvenate. Okay? There's something very Uranian about coating yourself with a face mask and putting 2 cucumber slices on your it's the most Uranus thing to do for the skin. And it's not just Uranus and Taurus. Okay? Everywhere around, when you look at the image of what do you have when somebody wears a face mask, man or a woman, before COVID, somebody doing the masks for the facial skin, you have a person with mud on their face and 2 cucumbers for eyes. What's more Uranus than that? You say, but it's squeaky, but it's like, how is that related to an orgasm? Well, it turns you on, but that's something you do to caretake for your skin. If you allow yourself to be funny enough, if you allow yourself to be ridiculous, something that Saturn fears, your skin becomes healthy. If you allow yourself to look ridiculous, your skin becomes new like a child. If you allow yourself to be ridiculous, you discover some truths, you become a wise man, you have a story to tell. The children listen. People listen to you. They care to hear a story. Think about the type of adults that get along with children. They always tell these funny stories. They always have these funny ways around them, these funny ways to deliver the information, unusual stuff the children like. And then they adhere to their authority. Hey, that's the Saturn-Uranus, is how they interact. And we are at the hour of the sun, so this is an educative, this is an intelligence hour. A luminary is how you see the world. And sun in Saturn sign. And I'm thirsty, so I'll make myself some tea. Let's do something experimental. Should I? I think I want to make myself some tea. People are still partying. We have Orthodox living next door, next building. So they're partying and they're not celebrating the New Year. They're just celebrating their everyday Shabbat party. I never knew Orthodox people party so hard. And it's kind of exciting when I think about it. It's kind of really exciting when I think about it. It's sometimes so much so that the neighbor had to warn them that they would call the police on them. They just party, they sing in religious songs and so they're being happy. Nothing wrong about it. So I guess I'm okay to live here with all my altars inside my home for planetary entities and whatnot. and weird noises that I make when I work out, because I won't call the police on them if they don't call the police on me, right? Like if they don't bother me, then I'm comfortable. Um, it's just hard to get along with neighbors one on one. So I'm gonna drink water, make myself some tea, and wish you a happy new year. And may all your dreams come true, the ones that are beneficial for you. Yeah.